Well, John, we're heading into a busy summer and we're going to have to do more remote episodes. So this will be a good test. Let's see how it works.
Yes. Yeah. Well, on the road. It's a busy time of year. We're going to talk about why you hedge today. And we're also going to, we're going to pinpoint why you should be leaving the upside open this time of year. This is one of the most important times of year. And guys make huge mistakes by capping what they can gain on the grains. So we're going to see if we can get it all figured out and tell people why we hedge and why this time of year is the most important time of year for the farm.
Let's go.
Welcome to Hedge Heads, where hosts John Prischmann and Ryan Tungseth discuss commodity markets, hedging, and anything related to trading futures. Remember, the risk of loss in trading commodity interests can be substantial. These are opinions only and not trading advice. While no one knows where the market's going, they're not afraid to share some ideas.
Well, John, if I was paying attention right, it looks like I had a couple chances to get $5 Dees corn.
You did. Depending on what your attitude was. And, I've been talking to a lot of guys lately, and everybody seems to have a different attitude. Here's what we got going on in the markets. Oil up $7 one day, down $10 the next. And it's this yo-yo that's got everybody second guessing all their decisions. And I think that's what we'll make this one about is just having that plan, sticking to it. I would say this is probably one of the toughest years that I've seen, mainly because you have ongoing negotiations, and it's not clear where it's headed. Is it close? Is it far apart? You're hearing different things from both sides, and it's, the more you get into it, the harder it is to figure it out. So that's where the markets have been trading. It came up. What did we hit? 511 in December, I think, something like that. 509.
504 was what I saw, but I haven't been paying that much attention.
I might have been looking at March too. It got to where even with these higher input costs, it makes a lot of sense. Now, I was going over numbers with a number of different farms, and we're trying to think of ways to keep the upside open. So you got the next 5-6 weeks are some of the most important times of the year. You're going to get a lot of May highs, but you're also getting a lot of June highs. And a lot of times they'll be very similar. Like if it does fall off in May, oftentimes it comes back and is the same price in June or a lot higher. So just if you miss this rally, doesn't mean that it's over at all this time of year. So the way you approach this time of year is keeping the upside open for the next 5-6 weeks if possible. Now, how do you do that? $5 December puts were 35 cents the other day. Of course, they're not there anymore. But that was the number I was looking at that starts to make sense. You then have a 465 floor free and clear after you pay your 35 cents. And then you have your upside wide open. Now, so when I talk about these strategies, I don't mean that you just go out and do it and it's done. What happens is you're using that put to see the next 5 weeks of weather, if that makes sense. Because we could have $6, $6.50 corn, or we could have $4.20, $4.30 corn. And in a year like this, with the oil price being where it is and all the jitters about the market, this market has especially high upside if the weather wasn't cooperative. So it's a very interesting situation. So I like to keep the upside open. I don't think there's a better time of year than right now to be looking at having that happen. So let's just say we buy this put. Hypothetically. So you're locking in your corn. Worst case scenario, it's 465 futures. You paid 35 cents out of pocket, so it's $5 minus that 35 cents. That's how you get to 465. And why would I take 465 when I can just get 490 something? Because if it goes to 550, $6, you don't get that. If you have 465 guarantee with a $5 put and it goes to $6, you have a chance to get that. That's the big difference. And that's what's going to separate better marketers from, guys that just simply pull the trigger at various price levels. Now, I'm not talking about 100% on the farm or anything. What I'm talking about is, let's just say you produce 200,000 bushels, on a small farm, mid-sized farm, whatever, depending on the region of the country, just for easy math. On maybe I would say, 75,000 bushels of that 200, I plan on keeping the upside open. That's what I'm talking about. Not all 100% anything, just the percentage that you want wide open to the upside. Now, a lot of guys do this every year. They keep it wide open to the upside, but guess what part they're leaving out? And it's really important.
Actually taking advantage of it when it comes.
Well, that's often missed, but having your floor locked in no matter what. Sure. The way a lot of people think of the marketing is, I think 509 is the highest it's going to get. I need to grab that and do that on a portion. There's nothing wrong with that if it's profitable. But doing that on 50%, 60, 70, 80% at this time of year makes absolutely no sense, in my opinion. Doing it in July when there's rain in the forecast makes a lot of sense, getting more aggressive. So know your time frames and know that this is one of the most explosive time frames of the year. So why would you take out the upside? Well, I want to lock in that 509 corn. Again, I'm not talking a guy out of marketing incrementally on the way up. I'm talking when you start to make your stand. When you think, hey, I'm going to pull the trigger on 60%, 70% of this corn right now, and I'm going to take the upside out. There's going to be years where it goes substantially higher, and you want to be a part of those years. So if you keep on taking that upside out every time to try to save money, over time you're going to go broke slowly. And that's what's happened in farming, is that taking a shortcut to marketing just ultimately leads you to being very defensive on your marketing. So back to the put. So let's just say we go along and the market comes off, but it's not good weather, not bad weather, and we're at 470. What would that put be worth? Probably somewhere in the range of 42 cents. So, what it's done is it's allowed you to see that weather in that window, which is the important part I'm trying to get to.
Sure.
It's you bought yourself 5 weeks. At that time, depending on the weather, you can say, hey, I don't think I need this put on anymore, and I'm going to take my profits. The 3-week forecast looks terrible, and I want to get out of this put. I don't think there's any downside. Or, hey, there's a bunch of rain in the forecast. I'm going to keep this put in place. Yes, I wish I would have got 509, but I'm going to have to settle for 465 on these bushels that I'm doing this program on. So you don't know the outcome. That's the point of hedging. It's that you don't want to give up on this upside. Leave that upside open in a year that has this much potential. Now, that being said, look at.
I want to clarify something though. If we knew what the market was going to do, you wouldn't need to hedge.
You wouldn't need to hedge. Exactly.
If you knew what the market was doing, you don't need a hedge.
Yeah, and a lot of people make that mistake that you're saying exactly that they say no one knows where the market's going. Why would anybody hedge? Because no one's knows. It's the exact opposite of that. That's exactly why you hedge. That's why businesses hedge in the real world all the time on a daily basis. Whether you're hedging in currencies and you're in import and exports, whether you're at banks hedging interest rates, whether you're hedging your fuel needs if you're a big transportation company, hedging happens all the time, every day around the world. Farmers definitely hedge. Producers, cattle guys definitely hedge. It's not that they don't. It's just that a lot of them don't see the benefit of it for what you were saying. If you don't know where the market was going, why wouldn't I just sell and just save all that money? Because you're taking the upside out. And I keep going back to that is if you keep selling 475 480, 490 corn with inputs rising up, it's just a slowly sinking battle that you're trying to defend against. Then you're saying, well, that 1 year will come along that'll pay for that, but will it? Are you going to be all locked in at 480 when that year comes along? So what my point I'm trying to make is there's a time of year, and this is it. We're in it right now, from May into about June 18th or 19th, that you want that upside as open as possible in these grains, and at least a percentage of it, 30-40%. Because those are the years that are really going to offset, the bad years. You don't want to just keep playing defense every single year. You want to play some defense and some offense, and then something in the middle. That would be the ideal blend. Doing 3 different things, doing some hedge to arrives. I think once you get into more advanced hedging, like, there's accumulator contracts and stuff like that. You can recreate all that here. I think that you're better off learning how to do that, selling futures, selling a call, selling a put, and then we won't get into that too much. But you can recreate all these elevator programs as well and not have to commit the bushels. Just keep on learning, keep on, battling through it. But that's the reason why we hedge, is exactly the situation we're in right now. We don't want to settle for a price that's okay when it could be a lot higher this year, especially with what's going on. That being said, I don't know if you saw the markets here. I know you're traveling today, Ryan, and that's why we're doing it via phone. But I don't know if you saw the markets. The oil market, what was that? Down 750. Beans were down 20, and then corn was down 12. I think beans ended down 18. So really ugly looking day in the grains. Very ugly looking day. And I'm not saying we don't have downside risk here. We have a tremendous downside risk with the funds being this long. So this back and forth yo-yos really wore everybody out. Tomorrow, oil could be up $10, and then probably corn and soybeans are going to recover, and you get this back and forth. I'm wore out by it. I got a dentist appointment that I'm looking forward to. That's how tired of the markets I am right now.
I love it. No, I've been watching the market, glancing as they traveled here, and man, going day to day, back and forth. It's, the range has been crazy, but now the range seems to be expanding. So, me personally, I'm watching the downside a lot closer, but like you said, no one knows where it's going. So.
Especially with the weather pattern we have. Let's talk about the weather pattern a little bit. You're also getting into this zone where people are going to debate endlessly on whether this is bullish or bearish weather. It seems to get worse every year. But what we are seeing are wild swings back and forth from warm to cold. This is going all the way down to Texas. But you know what's not bringing? It's not that energy switch. Generally brings a lot of rain and a lot of moisture. You're not seeing it in this pattern, and the West is very dry already. You're definitely seeing that here. You're just not getting that energy that you normally get with a hot and cold clashing in all these fronts. So are we starting to wind down on this energy? Just when you start thinking that it's not going to rain, then you go on Twitter and see there's a giant. Did you see the giant super El Nino push out of the Pacific? It's coming right at us, I guess. So now they got this super El Nino headed this way. And again, the debate just goes on and on whether this is bullish or bearish. But I think, just sitting from where I'm sitting and doing it for as long as I've done it, this does seem to be a drier than expected pattern so far. Initially, that's going to help with very fast plantings, which is what you're seeing. The East is definitely picking up rain, but the West is not. So we'll see how this plays out. Again, another piece of the puzzle. Exactly why I'm keeping the upside open right now. Or trying to.
Trying to is key.
Yeah, trying to. It's easier said than done. You present this to guys, you lay it out there, and then it comes to paying the bill 35 cents. There's not a lot of people that are interested in that, and that's really why hedging gets skipped. But we're trying to convey why we hedge. We don't want to give up on the price. We in times of year where it could go significantly higher. We also don't want to gamble 100% on if it goes down, we're not covered. So this is the giving up a little bit of the bottom line to see if I can get a lot more. That's what that's what we're trying to get across today, is that there is alternatives, and we use the most simple one that you could possibly use. There's many more things to do here. You can get as advanced as you want, but one thing I don't like to do this time of year is get myself into a bunch of margin trouble. I don't like the idea that if it goes up, I'm going to get a bunch of margin calls. So I'll switch to those strategies later that are a little more aggressive. But this time of year, like I say, I don't like to give up on the crop and the price.
Yeah, that makes sense. We're traveling here, so I'd probably keep this episode short. Is there anything else you want to make sure you get in today?
Yeah, you have the cattle market doing what cattle does. This back and forth. The meat, what I see in the cattle market is the meat's not moving at these higher prices the way it needs to move. Now, so far the packers are paid up because the cattle aren't out there. But again, it's this not sustainable model that we're running here. I don't know what's going to give. something's going to give in the system, but they're either going to have to bring up meat prices a lot more, or you're going to have to, figure out how to get, these cattle bought for less money. The tug of war is going back and forth. You factor in oil, and it seemed like, a few days ago, consumers are going to buy less for a higher oil, less disposable income. Then you get a day like today, corn goes down 12, oil goes down $7, and then all of a sudden cattle kind of gets this new life in it. But it did fade today. So again, quickly on cattle, if you haven't discussed levels and hedge levels, with your guy, definitely start doing that. I've been running the numbers every day. I know guys lean LPR a lot of times because it's slightly cheaper than puts. The put, in my opinion, is a far, far superior product to the LRP. Other guys will argue against it, mainly guys that sell our LRP, but I choose not to even sell it because I'm not a believer in the product. I think you keep the hedge in your own hands, look at puts, discuss strategies with puts in this kind of market, and that's where I'd be in cattle right now. I think, and I've been saying that I would speed up the timelines a little bit if you haven't been. Now, I know a lot of guys have maybe been one, 2, 3 rounds of hedging, and they're going to say, hey, this thing's just a bull market. I don't need to do it anymore. That's when the trouble is going to happen. We don't know if it's this round, next round, or what. But again, have those discussions on the cattle. And again, to the insiders, don't fret. It's I haven't gone missing. What we have was a market that was walking up, again, making incremental sales on the way up is the way to do it, small incremental sales. And we're going to have to put pen to paper here. Expect to start seeing strategies come out a little bit. Oh, I got to take that back. I can't say strategies. Expect to see game plans come out. Strategies is a word that implies that you're going to do it. So game plan, we'll come up with some game plans, and we'll start getting some written stuff to the guys that are subscribed on the insider side. It's going to cover corn. We're definitely going to have soybeans. We'll have a little bit of cattle in there, and then also wheat. But corn is going to be the featured one that I'm going to be writing about. Beans will be up there. There's not much to say. You know how I feel about beans and this kind of being a bubble, where I feel corn's a little bit more of a real market with a longer term, a little bit better fundamentals. But we'll start getting some of that stuff out to you. These markets just go back and forth. By the time you get a sheet, it's going to be the exact opposite, but it's been nice. The market's been walking higher. Now the hard decisions start to happen. As markets are starting to go back and forth, we're going to have to figure this out.
All right, give me what months and a couple levels on cattle to keep an eye on.
Okay, well let's do grain. Let's do grain months first.
Okay.
So I was I liked in the July timeframe here not too long ago for soybeans. Now I'm looking more at September for beans and for corn. That's the month I like. I looked at short dated stuff, which is going to be the December or November contract, depending on beans or corn in different time frames. But I like the September month. That's the one I'm working with for corn and soybeans. And then if it's an actual futures hedge, I'll use the that was just talking for options. And then on the cattle side of stuff, for most of the calls are feeders, and these feeders are going to be ready August, September, October, November, and January. So you have a number of different months guys are pricing. A few guys have gotten involved in November. Some guys have gotten involved in October and January. And so far, no August, but a lot of talking about August.
Okay, and that's feeders, you said.
Yeah, that's on the feeder side. Live cattle's been different. I think guys are more interested in making sure that longer term stuff is locked up in live cattle than shorter term. I'm not saying that there isn't risk up front. There certainly is. But it just feels like as this bull is getting older and older, those guys want to reach out as far as they can go in the back and make sure they can keep these prices for as long as possible. So I've been doing more work in the back end, June 26th on back. Well, include April 27. I meant June 27. April 27 on back is where my focus has been lately.
Yeah. Yours and my favorite live cattle spread to watch. I've been watching that one pretty close lately. What are you watching that October December spread?
Watching that October to December spread. Yep. That's been a pretty reliable one over the years. Call me for details if you want more information on it. And I'll tell you exactly what we're looking at there, what we're looking for, what levels. But that's the one that jumps out at me. There's a number of different decent looking ones, as most of the cattle prices in the back end are almost exactly the same price. In the front, they're a little more inverted. But October, December is the one I really like. But some of the other deferred stuff I like as well. Give me a call on that, and I'll tell you specifically what we're going over.
Perfect. How come you never bring up hogs anymore, John? They just too boring.
You know, I should. We'll make it a point that we do. Hogs is such a fun market to trade. I think the industry more than anything. When I first started, I was in the hog market probably more than anything else. I liked hog spreads, and it just, it fit with what I was doing at the time. But, like the dairy industry's changed, the hog industry's changed, and there's just simply not as many producers. There's not as much demand for the information as there used to be. Where if I was in southern Minnesota, I'm sure there'd be more. West Central, there's not near as much. So just after 1999, it really changed everything. Even though it was a long time ago, it's consolidated for many, many years. And that's why we don't include it as much. But there, going forward, I'm going to start talking about the markets I used to really love. Sugar, world sugar, I like. I'm not a big fan of cocoa, coffee. We'll start touching on some of these other markets. I have clients in rice right now. So there's a lot of different markets and a lot of different things we can talk about. Oats, it's hard to get oat news, but I'm in oats and oat spreads. So we'll start hitting some of these different markets, a little different flavor, and we'll start going that way. So we'll fit in hogs too, because I do love hogs.
Sounds great. Well, I know you have your super exciting dentist appointment, so we better let you go to that. But
yeah. Again, I always kidding about looking forward to it, but I don't mind the dentist that much. It is, the markets do drive a guy crazy, though. It is anything but the markets is what I enjoy right now. Not that I'm even on the wrong side. It's just the indecision, and it just never follows through, and you can't count on anything. Not that you can ever count on anything in the markets. This one's really flaky, though, and very difficult to trade.
Absolutely. All right, leave your number, John.
218-731-1578.
Thanks.
Sure.